talk for the south side, yeah, talk for the team. It's fair Prince and respected Prince. Boy, you slow, cause I'ma break it down iller. See, Prince was the businessman and Prince was the killer.
In the 1970s, on humid South Jamaica nights, a rangy kid named Gerald Prince Miller could be found hanging around his single-family home in Queens, near the 40 Projects, aka South Jamaica houses. By 16, Prince floated down Guy R. Brewer Boulevard in razor-creased Lees and fresh suede Pumas, every step stirring whispers about who fronted him the latest bundle. His uncle, Kenneth Supreme McGriff, was only 2 years older, but already wore the aura of a neighborhood big brother. McGriff had a loose-knit circle of teenage kids who hung together and were known as 5%ers. They would answer each other with "Peace God," so outsiders labeled them the Peace Gods. Their first hustle wasn't dope but door-kicking. Daytime burglaries of nearby middle-class homes and the occasional bank job when an older connection could supply wheels and a shotgun. Prince, barely 15, worked lookout, counting beats between patrol car passes, timing them like a drummer. Court files later pegged these scores as his criminal apprenticeship. Preem talked business. Prince mapped exits. The Peace Gods' smash-and-grab raids forged an alliance with the Seven Crowns, a dominant South Jamaica crew. The partnership insulated them from neighborhood turf beefs and taught Prince a lesson he'd never forget. Alliances buy you time. Fear buys you silence. Prince's rookie mistake came during a Queens Village burglary, where a silent alarm tripped. He was snatched with jewelry still in his windbreaker and sentenced on a juvenile offender burglary charge. Prison folklore says the guards called him "Your Highness" after reading Prince on a visitor request. Records confirm he served nearly 3 years and walked out July 1st, 1984, hardened and hungry. Behind the wall, he'd absorbed two influences: the supreme mathematics that framed hustling as science, and older stick-up guys who schooled him on discipline. They told him, a plan ain't real till you price the bullets. When Prince returned home, the neighborhood had changed.
South Jamaica, Queens was a very troubled area.
It's rough to grow up in this neighborhood. You know, you learn how to survive in this neighborhood.
How's it to be a cop in this neighborhood? Rough,
tough, scary, you know. They scared every day.
Crack replaced powder, and Supreme's small clique was reorganizing into what would soon be branded the Supreme Team. Prince slid naturally into second in command. Where his uncle handled negotiation, the freshly paroled 20-year-old enforced compliance, issuing rooftop sentries, rotating stash apartments, and coloring vial tops yellow for Prince's crew, so runners could restock in seconds. Those early hustles, burglaries, stolen Buick Regals, 5%er study sessions weren't side notes. They were the blueprint. They taught Prince, structure breeds survival, use violence as a punctuation, and loyalty is leased, not owned. The Seven Crowns Alliance showed him friendships bend to profit.
He said, you know what? Your guys, they love you. They don't have to give you money. And you don't have to give them money. They love you for who you are. He said, I wish I had friends like that didn't look at me just for money. Your guys really respect you.
I wasn't born a prince, he wrote from USP Big Sandy decades later. I hustled my way to royalty, one cracked lock at a time. In 1985, when crack spread throughout Queens, Prince reorganized the crew like a corporate chart. He put enforcers in K-cars, which were plain sedans that slid beside any rival who so much as whispered on their corners. By 1987, the Supreme Team was grossing an estimated $200,000 a day and paying neighborhood kids a week's rent just to hold beepers. Ronald Tuck Tucker, a former Yellow Top lieutenant, stated, Prince ain't just hire soldiers, he drew up a shift chart and turned hustlers into staff. Fresh out of Elmira, Prince walked the 5 Baisley Park towers with a legal pad, jotting the names of every teen who could run a 40-yard dash with a mouthful of vials. If you showed up on time and kept your mouth shut, you got a beeper and a starter pack, Tuck said. Membership wasn't just who's hungry. You had to learn supreme mathematics so coded. Radio chatter sounded like numerology homework to cops. Prince divided the empire into 4 micro-franchises, each run by a lieutenant whose vial cap matched his crew. Orange tops were from Wilfredo C. Just Arroyo. Red went to Harry Big C. Hunt, who was a former bodyguard turned captain, and blue tops went to Roy Pookie Hale. Rules were printed on Xerox sheets posted inside stash apartments. 1. No singles, no shorts. Don't waste time on $1 rocks. 2. Stay behind the line. Workers never crossed the chalk stripe on the handball court. Customers came to them. 3. There were 3 shift rotations, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to midnight, midnight to 8 a.m. Miss roll call twice and you were fined. Miss a 3rd time and Big C handled HR. Prince put teens on rooftop lawn chairs with Motorola radios and binoculars. Code 7 God meant narcotics cops were 1 block out. He put together a security force that would dress in black fatigues, bulletproof vests, and carried AR-15s. Their jump-out vans sent hustlers sprinting for doorways. They'd hop out like the A-Team, only the theme song was Scream, recalls a Baisley resident. Anyone skimming was marched to the basements nicknamed the boardroom. Piniella told jurors that Prince opened meetings with, "What's missing ain't money, it's respect." Runners earned $500 a shift, paid nightly in envelopes stamped with the lieutenant's color, with Prince keeping carbon copies for every payout. Each lieutenant hit a 2% spoilage allowance. Lost vials above that came out of his cut. New hires spent 48 hours bagging in the Silk Room, an apartment where women worked assembly line style over glass tables. Mess up the gram count and you were back to lookout duty. A corner boy stated once, Preem drew the blueprint, but Prince poured the concrete. Prince's build-out turned a handful of hustlers into a 200-member machine that prosecutors later compared to the Mafia in structure and menace. The Supreme Team's daily take, estimated at $200,000 in 1987, wasn't luck. It was the byproduct of Prince's brutally efficient HR policy, color-coded marketing, and a standing army in black fatigues. But money demanded muscle. Queens was already a war zone, but once Prince took the board, he started moving pieces with the cold logic of a chess clock. Every threat got an answer inside 30 moves.
And Supreme was fortunate at that time, I guess you might say, in that he pled out to a conspiracy, I believe, and went to jail and left the Supreme Team to his nephew, Gerald Miller, who street name was Prince. And that's when the Supreme Team got really violent.
Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols, phoning from Rikers, believed Isaac Just Me Bolden and his brother Henry were behind a string of stick-ups on cat spots. Prince volunteered to settle the debt. He paid 2 corrupt parole division employees, Officer Ina McGriff and clerk Ronnie Younger, $3,000 for the Boldens' home addresses. On August 6, 1987, 11:48 p.m., Isaac stepped out of his mother's house on 122nd Avenue. 2 shooters opened fire. Isaac dropped in the doorway, still clutching a grocery bag. Henry was wounded the same night up in the Bronx, proof the team could strike borough-wide. Prince wasn't just collecting a bounty. He was writing a line of credit in blood, an NYPD detective later testified. When parole files revealed Lookout James Page was talking to police, Supreme sent word from federal lockup. Erase the leak. On a rainy October night, Page was cornered in a Hollis alley and shot twice in the face. An object lesson for anyone imagining witness protection. By summer '89, Prince had rebuilt the crew and was tired of paying Colombian wholesalers. In July, he lured 4 suppliers, 2 known only as Fernando and George, into a Baisley Park apartment, hog-tied them, and walked off with dozens of kilos. Their bodies were later dumped around Brookville Park, never formally ID'd. Prosecutors called the robbery Prince's hostile takeover. Fernando Suarez and Pablo Perlaza thought they were delivering product. Instead, they were led upstairs at 116-28 Guy R. Brewer, Taped wrists, plastic bags over their heads, suffocated while Roy Pookie Hale took batting practice on their skulls.
And, you know, to pay homage to a guy who baseball bats his source of supply to death and all that was strange. I mean, Supreme, I understand. He can give you protection. You get the street cred guy with you and your entourage. But Prince was, you know, he's just like, you know, he's the bottom. I mean, he's bad guy. And for no reason.
Harry Big C Hunt arrived in a Chevy Nova. Trunks were loaded, and the bodies scattered across Queens side streets before sunrise. A week later, Suarez's wife called Arroyo looking for her husband. He shrugged on the phone and said, "Man never showed." Dealer Gus G. Money Rivera had introduced the Colombians. After the July ripoff, he became a liability. Shot once in the head in a courtyard, but lived. Prince's lieutenant, C. Just Arroyo, tracked the limping survivor to a cheap motel on Rockaway Boulevard and finished the job. Prince turned Baisley's boiler rooms into what soldiers nicknamed the boardroom. Any runner light on cash or heavy on rumors faced an improvised tribunal. First offense, broken fingers. Second offense, shout of lights, and the room went dark. Gunfire spoke next. Security Chief Ernesto P.R. Righteous Piniella later told jurors, if Prince said discipline, he meant graves, not grounding. Checkmate ain't when the king falls, Prince wrote years later from USP Big Sandy. It's when the other side realizes every square they thought was safe is covered. Thanksgiving turkeys for residents one night, rooftop gunfire the next. Prince mixed patronage with terror to keep witnesses quiet. South Jamaica's Supreme team looked unstoppable in the late 80s. $200,000 day sales, rooftop sentries with Motorola radios, and Gerald Prince Miller calling shots like a field general. Yet within 5 years, the same discipline that built the machine helped federal agents map it, wire it, and finally cage its architect. While Prince was briefly jailed on state charges, an NYPD FBI detail hit several stash apartments, seizing weapons, ledgers, and a kilo of cocaine. The crew spirited 11 kilograms and $200,000 away, minutes before the doors came off. But the raid exposed addresses, aliases, and operating rhythms the feds had never seen. With Kenneth Supreme McGriff in federal prison, Prince's answer was more muscle, body armor for the security squad, and mandatory codes over rooftops. Violence spiked, 8 homicides in '87 alone. Traditional buys kept failing. Undercover cops couldn't get within a hallway of product. Investigators laid out the problem to a state judge. The leaders have insulated themselves behind lookouts, bodyguards, and coded talk. We need the phones. Authorizations followed. Over 100 recorded calls, Prince bargaining for kilos, greenlighting beatdowns, discussing discipline meetings, became the spine of a federal RICO case. Ernesto P.R. Piniella, chief of security, flipped after arrest. Ina McGriff, a state parole officer, admitted selling targets' addresses for $3,000 a clip. Their testimony stitched the voices on tape to bodies in morgues. In March of 1990, before dawn, more than 150 agents hit Baisley Park and surrounding safe houses. Prince was found in satin pajamas, a radio scanner still chirping. The raid had all of Southside talking that morning, gossiping about how Prince got bagged, and all the rooftops are quiet. Assault rifles, 3 vest-wrapped ledgers logging vial counts, and a Xeroxed employee handbook, evidence of the enterprise's hierarchy the jury would later see. The 16-month DEA and FBI wiretap, agents called Operation Sunrise, caught Prince on dozens of calls arranging re-ups, greenlighting beatdowns, and laundering profits through Queens car lots. In 1992, he was hit with 7 concurrent life terms, plus 20 years for money laundering. Locked in USP Big Sandy, Kentucky, Prince spent 3 decades studying Islamic theology and mentoring younger inmates. He wrote, "I did body time, but my mind stayed free. A compassionate release motion citing age, 55 plus. and exemplary conduct finally cut the chains, and under the First Step Act, the doors would be opened. In September of 2024, Judge Nicholas G. Garofis reduced Miller's sentence to time served, 34 years, praising remarkable rehabilitation and multiple job offers in anti-violence work. He walked out of prison on September 11, 2024. A Queens paper described the release scene. Middle-aged former soldiers chanting "Team strong but legal now," as Prince stepped into daylight. No jewelry, just a plain gray sweatsuit and a grin that hinted at borrowed years.